everybody. Welcome to the Love Her podcast, a podcast for women who are on a journey to rediscover their true selves by shedding the layers of expectation, conformity, and roles placed upon them. We explore the process of unbecoming, breaking free from societal pressures, past beliefs, and external influences to fully embrace the woman within. Each episode, we dive deep into the stories of women who have resisted, redefined, and reclaimed their authentic selves. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about unbecoming everything that really isn't you so you can be who you were truly meant to be. Welcome back to the Love Her podcast, everybody. I'm Julie Cole, your host, here with episode 13. Some of y'all may know I just took a solo camping trip to Utah and Nevada, where I camped. I rented a Subaru Forester that had a rooftop tent, and I stayed in a different campsite every night. And I traveled around parts of Utah and Nevada. And it was absolutely amazing. And I had some reflections from before the trip, but also ones I picked up along and since I've been home that I'd like to share. So sometimes folks tell me they don't think they can do what I do, whether that's traveling by themselves in general, whether that's traveling and camping by themselves, whether that's hiking by themselves, whether that's I did last year, I went to a concert in Las Vegas by myself, which was absolutely phenomenal. And the truth is there's a few elements to this that I've had to contend with that I kind of walk people through when they're working on making these changes. And this is true whether folks are just trying to be with themselves in general, or whether they're trying to do something like travel or hike by themselves. So these skills are transferable and really necessary no matter what level of trying to live with solitude you might be experiencing. So the first is that the quiet is loud. The quiet is loud. I tell people that all the time. Most people cannot slow down because the quiet is loud. And once upon a time, I could not slow down because the quiet was loud. And I came to a place in my life where the loudness of the outside life could not outshine the loudness inside me. And so I had to get quiet to get familiar with the loudness. I had to get quiet to let it get loud to actually get quiet. That started in 2018 when I experienced a pretty profound case of burnout, like could not function. It was bad. And I had to go through a period of learning to live with the loudness that came in the quiet because I literally could not function. So I couldn't pull the outside world in. I couldn't over function. I couldn't overwork. I couldn't over take care of everybody else. I couldn't overdo everything I'd always overdone. I couldn't do that anymore. I had to be still, and in the stillness, there was a lot of noise, and truth was, I was still doing a lot. Say I wasn't doing anything. I just wasn't working 50 hours a week, but I was still taking on training stuff. I was starting a private practice. I was helping support my husband at the time with our wellness center. I was taking over care of my kids full time. I was taking care of our home. Like I was still doing a ton of stuff. I just wasn't working 50 hours a week anymore. So when I say I stopped, I just stopped overperforming in that way. And the quiet was loud, and I had to learn to let it be loud. And again, in 2020, when I was home for months on end or weeks on end, actually it was months on end, with kids who were schooling and trying to see clients from home with telehealth, and I was home with the kids all the time, 24/7, 7 days a week, for weeks on end. And the quiet was so loud, and it was amplified by the loudness of the world. Everybody was overwhelmed and anxious and scared and frustrated and all of the things. And I had to really sit with the quiet and the loudness that came up in the quiet. And I would say that year, I built a huge tolerance, an enormous tolerance to sitting with the quiet. And I found that it calmed down some. And then again, in my separation, when my life as I knew it just got pulled out from under me. And it did happen suddenly. Like the elements that led up to it were not sudden. There was a lot that happened prior to it that set the stage for the suddenness to happen, and I want to acknowledge that. But the actual decision was a sudden one, and the world got ripped out from under me. And I had to really get really, really clear on sitting with the loudness of the quiet. And God, it was a cacophony. I was so anxious and dissociated and overwhelmed, right? And it was back in 2018 that I took my first away by myself away, I think ever in my marriage and ever since I'd had kids. I didn't make a habit of leaving and going anywhere by myself. I would go to retreats with friends or go out of town for weekends with friends or do things like that or girls' trips. But this was the first time I'd gone by myself. And I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because I was the director of a nonprofit. And one of my board members kind of led the charge to get the founders and the other board members to like literally force me to take an away. And she had a condo at the beach, and they gave me and they made me do it during the week. I wasn't allowed to do it on a weekend. They made me do it during a week when I'd have to leave work and let work be. And that was one of the first times I really became aware of the dynamics that were happening. And so one of the things that I really wanted people to understand is like the quiet is loud because the loudness is being protected by something. So the life is loud to mask the loudness inside, because the inside voice, the loudness inside, is asking us, demanding us to do something to take care of ourselves that we're not doing to take care of ourselves a lot of the times. And so that week when I left, it was so loud. It was so loud. And I couldn't tolerate being alone. I listened to music and I danced around and I sat on the beach and I watched other people and I constantly texted. I went and got a tattoo. I went shopping. I could not sit still. I could not be still. And then my next trip was away to an Airbnb at the beach, and then another one at the beach, and then the mountains. But it was in my separation that I started doing things like camping by myself. So that was when I got the truck bed tent and started camping by myself. That was when I started doing things like going to concerts by myself. And I went to Vegas by myself for a couple of days and went to see a concert in Vegas by myself. That was pretty profound. I went to Montana to a workshop there by myself, and I stayed for an extra day and went into Glacier National Park in the winter by myself. I did not see another human for like 3 hours. It was really disorienting, but also very, very exciting. And I loved it. I loved it. And the one thing I can say about this last trip, it was quiet. The solitude was quiet. The quiet was quiet. And that's the result of the work. And so one point is that a lot of people cannot do the things that I do to take care of myself because they want to start where I am now and they don't see where I was in the beginning to get to where I am now. And so there's a titration that has to happen to building tolerance to sitting with the loudness that comes up when it's quiet, and that a lot of people avoid that. Then also just building tolerance to your fear. Like I had to build tolerance to my fear. I don't talk about it a lot, but I worked in sexual assault services for a long time. So for a long time when I traveled by myself, I had to stay in a place that had a locked door. Does that fully protect me? No. But does it feel like protection? Yes. And then I had to travel where I could take my truck. It was my truck. I was familiar with it. It was my tent, my supplies, my gun, my hatchet, my bear spray, like the things I carry with me for protection, my knife that I keep on me, and I keep all of those things on me when I travel by myself. And then I had to build tolerance to flying somewhere and not necessarily having those things. I didn't have my truck or my tent or my supplies or my gun or my knife. But I don't have those things when I'm traveling. There's two things. One is I had to get clear with being okay with being in the quiet, in the solitude. And that's taken a lot of time and intention, a lot of time and intention. And then two, I had to work through my fear of what it meant to be by myself, and not like the emotional piece of it, but the physical piece of it, like physically making sure I feel safe, I feel protected, I don't feel like I'm putting myself in danger or compromising my safety in any way. And so doing that. So what would I say to somebody who wants to do it? Well, you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. So start simple. Keep it really simple. I had a client who wanted to travel and do something by themselves, and so they decided to just go to a town that they liked and stay in an Airbnb in the center of town where there's a lot of activity, where they could get out and walk around and just kind of come back and fall out and get up the next day and drive home. And that's what they had the tolerance for. And they loved it, right? They loved it. But we had to talk about, like, what does it feel like to go do it? What does it feel like to leave your kids when you feel like going and being by yourself and leaving your kids is an abandonment of your kids? Because we're socialized to believe that. Men can disconnect and go hunt and go on men's trip and go golf and go do fishing and doing all the stuff that men do. And it's accepted. But women are somehow shamed for wanting to do the same things. So how do you work through the stories you tell yourself, or the stories that you've picked up through the years, about what it means to go take care of yourself? What is that? And that's part of the loudness that comes up when you get quiet. But then also, what happens when you peel back the over-functioning? What happens when you peel back the codependence in your work, or the enmeshment you have with your role at work, or the control that you feel like you have in your life? That's all an illusion, by the way, but it gives us a sense of safety. What happens when you peel those things back? And sometimes you have to start by just imagining what it's like, because actually doing it feels like too much. And once you build some tolerance to imagining what it's like, making a plan, and then actualizing the plan and having some accountability around the plan, I've gotten to a place now where I have an intuitive sense. A couple of months ago, I decided to start looking for flash deals on airfare. And I was looking at northern Utah, Salt Lake City, Denver, Vegas, Phoenix. And I kept going back and forth between those 4 airports: Salt Lake City, Denver, Vegas, Phoenix. And I'm like, okay, I can end up in Sedona or Cornville or somewhere around there, Flagstaff. I could do Salt Lake City and go south from there. I really want to do Gunnison, although I'm a little bit nervous about Gunnison by myself because it's pretty remote. But I could do Colorado, like where could I land and just branch out, and I kept searching and kept searching. And then I got a flash deal. And I took it, and it was going to Vegas. So I was like, Utah and Nevada it is. And here's the thing. I got the flight, and then I thought, where am I going to stay? And this is an important part, because part of what I've had to do is just learn to titrate my tolerance to discomfort and all of this, but I also intentionally lean into the discomfort of it. And y'all, I had an Airbnb around St. George, Utah, that I was looking at that I could stay at for 3 nights. But I kept going, like, I want to hit other points. I don't want to like stay here and drive and stay here and drive. I want to stay close to where I'm going to be. I'm going to explore and go stay somewhere there close to that. I want to be able to move. And I had a friend recently that went to Colorado and did a little bit of a jaunt in a camper van. And I said, why don't you look at the camper van rentals? And so I did. Some of them were out of my price range. But I found the Subaru with the rooftop tent, and it was in the price range I'd set. That was the other thing. I'm not busting the budget. I did the budget option, but I like that. It gives me the freedom to do what I need to do. But I will say this: when I was making the decision about my lodging, I thought, which option scares me? Staying in a rooftop tent in places I'm unfamiliar with was scary. So I was like, I almost pulled the trigger on the Airbnb, and then I realized the idea of staying in a basement Airbnb in a suburban section in one of the most beautiful areas in the country felt like a death of my soul. Like, I felt like I was compromising something fundamentally that I did not want to compromise. So I got the rooftop tent in the Subaru, and I did not regret the decision. And so I also said, which option scares me? I trusted my intuition to guide me, and the trip worked out great. And here's the beauty. So the solitude was quiet. And every step of the way, I had a loose plan, and I abandoned the plan 80% of the time. And then I just got on the map, and I looked around, and I grabbed like the green section off the map, and I am so grateful. You realize, like, trusting yourself to do things that feel uncomfortable. And I understand there's people who go, hike the Appalachian Trail by themselves, or, do the Cheryl Strayed things or whatever. But we look at those things and we think that that's what we should be doing. And this thing was scary for me because it was and it was a more expanded version of something I'd done already, but there was a lot of elements to it that were new. And so here's what happens when I, control for safety. I trust my intuition. Everything unfolds. And that was the beauty of it. It's like, it was absolutely gorgeous. It was exactly what I needed. And I came back with so much gratitude for the work that I have put in to be able to sit with myself. So much gratitude for that. And y'all, like, I really felt the presence of my creator, of my connection to nature, to my connection to humanity. Like, I felt completely connected to myself. And the quiet was quiet. The solitude was quiet. What a beautiful gift. What a beautiful gift. And if I hadn't have just started somewhere back in 2018, where would I be today? And so that's the part. If you don't ever start, you'll never get there. And you got to start somewhere and allow yourself to start in that place and to be really fucking uncomfortable in it. Forgive my French, but you got to allow yourself to really intentionally understand that it's going to be uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable when you just learn to slow down and things get really loud in your head. It's really uncomfortable to slow down and feel all the emotions that you've been stifling and avoiding come up. But there's something beautiful about being able to go sit in quiet at a campsite, looking at one of the most beautiful views you can imagine, being by yourself. The view reflected the inside perspective for me. It was quiet. It was calm. It was not rushed. It was not critical. It's just flow. And that's how I felt. So every time I take a chance on allowing myself to intentionally get uncomfortable, to do something that scares me and makes me uncomfortable, I give myself a chance to grow that more and more. And that is life. That's life. When we don't lean into those things that make us uncomfortable, that's what we regret. And life is out there ready for us to grab a hold of it. All we got to do is move for our discomfort. Now, I understand there's a lot of privilege in my statement. Everybody has the capacity to move towards discomfort, to do something that intentionally challenges them to grow in a relationship with their discomfort so that they grow as a human. They grow their capacity to deal with emotional regulation, distress tolerance, to be able to sit with the inevitable ebbs and flows of life. But also that discomfort teaches me to peel away the voices of everyone else and just be true to myself. And the more I'm true to myself, the more what's meant for me unfolds. I don't believe today that my purpose is an action. I don't believe it's an action. I don't believe it's this podcast. I don't believe it's my career. I don't believe it's an action. I do believe it's a way that I show up in the world in an embodied way. And that then translates to every other piece of work that I do. And that's the part that's beautiful. In doing that, I'm embodying everything about myself that I've tried to force, to change, minimize, make go away. I am my full, honest, big, beautiful, vibrant self. And man, what if I didn't get the gift to experience that? What if I didn't get that gift? So, takeaways. What happens when you get quiet? Does it get loud? And how do you learn to sit with that and observe it? Meditation's a great tool for that. A lot of people think that meditation is about making your mind get quiet. It's not. It's about learning to observe your mind without judgment, right? That's where peace comes, is you take away the judgment. You take away the attachment to the things that your mind gets the flow of your mind, and you allow your mind to be where it is. And that's kind of what happens when you learn to just let the loudness come. Two, where do you start? What's a good, just simple starting point? For some people, that's getting a gym membership. For some people, that's actually getting out and walking. For some people, that's wearing shorts. For some people, that's allowing yourself to not live on an eating plan 24/7. For some people, that's lifting that heavy weight. For some people, it's going to therapy. For some people, it's doing yoga. For some people, it's scheduling a trip to go somewhere by themselves. For some people, it's eating dinner by themselves. Maybe it's reading a different book or challenging yourself to have a conversation with somebody who's different from you so that you can understand the value of them as a human rather than the talking points that you judge them on. Maybe it's you separate yourself from social media so that you can learn to live with the quiet in your head and stop comparing yourself. God only knows what it is. What is it for you? I don't know. But what's a good starting point? And how do you build tolerance to discomfort and understand that just like life isn't a lack of discomfort? It's learning to be comfortable with the discomfort. It's learning to have tools to move through discomfort with confidence and know that you have the capacity to do it. That's where the real magic is. So thanks for being with me today. I'll be back next Monday with another guest for episode 14. I love you guys and I appreciate you. And talk to you soon.